Hi there, I'm Scott Silveri, and this is my wife Leah, and we're with Marriage Matters, and we thank you for joining us here today. We've got a really great episode, and we're going to get into the 4 foundational laws of marriage. But before,
People put so little value on marriage. We're talking about the priority of marriage today. And people put so little value on marriage. And, in 1983, I think it's 83% of adult Americans were married. And in 2018, now less than 50% of adult Americans are married.
Yeah.
And it's just because there's not a priority on marriage. There's
Right.
such a hopelessness in marriage now. Like, people look at it and it doesn't mean anything to them,
Right. God said, it is not good for man to be alone. And that goes for men and women. So God said that it is not good. We were not created to be alone. So you have that God put that seed of desire in your spirit to not be alone, to be with someone else. So for that 83% who went down to 50%, that lack of I'm not a math major, but around 33%, reduction, those people still have a desire
Right.
to be connected with somebody else. But they don't pursue it because why? Well, 50% of people who marry are going to divorce. So why would you even pursue that? So to me, the shame, the hurtfulness is you've got that desire, but you don't. But the cynicism keeps you from pursuing a marriage,
Right.
a God-based marriage.
Well, it's like people go into relationships, any relationship, as if it's disposable.
Oh, yeah.
It's a disposable commodity. People are disposable commodities now.
You're right.
And,
it sounds horrible, but you're right.
It's really a culture shift. You've seen how we as a society have changed, just the priority of marriage. And when the priority of marriage shifts, you can see the direct correlation, the priority of God
Yeah.
and priority of marriage.
Well, we've taken them out of everything. We've taken them out of school. We've taken them out of the courts. We've taken them out of life. Well, so we've taken them out of church. A lot of places.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely he's going to find his way out of marriage. And but again, I really do. I think it's very unfortunate that that you still have the sincere desire to connect, to be married. But
we were made
because
for
of this-
relationship.
right?
Yeah.
But because of the cynicism and the skepticism, and because God's been taken out of it, so it's kind of like having a beautiful car in your garage with no gasoline. There's no fuel. There's no God to get it cranked and get it going. So how do we protect? I think I'm shaking. How do we protect our marriage? How do we guard? And there's 4 foundational laws for marriage, and they are. I'm going to quiz you.
Yeah. So the law of priority, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Right.
The law of pursuit, the law of possession, and the law of purity.
Yep.
I should probably say those one more time for people since they're not on a slide. Priority, pursuit, possession, purity.
That's good. That's a lot of
A lot of P's.
that's a lot of big words. So today we're talking about the law of priority. So I wasn't going to do good on a quiz, so I actually typed them out. So we want to share 2 scriptures that talk about the importance of priority. And the first is from Genesis, it's 2:24-25. It said, "This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and the two become one flesh." And that's the priority. How many people, and maybe we're all guilty of it, is you don't want to leave mama. You don't want to leave mama, and well, the sisters get involved, and they don't really like the wife, and or maybe the brothers, or they pick on their new sister-in-law, and you still got that longing to stay with mama and daddy. Or when things go bad, right?
Who do you run back to?
Who do you run back to?
Right. And let me tell you, we've heard people say a good parents in a strong marriage, when they have a child run back to them, will tell them to go back.
Yeah.
When they're having
you're
trouble
right.
in their marriage, because that is your family now. That is your
Right.
priority.
But it's not looked at it like that. Like you said, it's a temporary, disposable commodity.
Right.
And but we're talking about your marriage being the priority, the law of priority, and Adam and Eve, up until the point of the apple, the forbidden fruit, that was right.
Right.
You leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife, because that's your family
Right.
now. your mom and dad, God bless them. You know, you honor them. I mean that. You know, but you can't keep running home to mama
Right.
when things go wrong.
And that's the thing too, you know, like so many, especially young couples, I think, and women, I think, are probably specifically guilty of this.
I agree.
You know, like, you know, you and I have a fight, and I go drag all our business to my mom.
Oh yeah.
You know, when I forgive you, doesn't mean that she forgives you.
Right.
You know, she's still carrying
You're right.
that with her. You know, that animosity or that anger or whatever.
Well, let me throw this one at you. Talking about keeping your priority to you and your spouse is what else? Where else are they running to, other than mama when they got a complaint with their spouse?
Facebook.
They're running to Facebook
Yeah.
and their social media and this and that, and everybody jumps in there. And man, listen. You know, your mother-in-law may forget one day, maybe, but listen, that stuff on social media, that stuff never goes away.
Right.
You know, and how do you think it makes your spouse feel? You know, if you have any desire for reconciliation, and you got all this junk posted on Facebook, and you know, I mean, how does it make you look? Not you, I mean, but somebody who does it. So let your spouse be the most important person. God's number one, your spouse is number two, right? But there should be no other person on this earth who's more important than your spouse. Not even your kids.
Right.
Listen, we make sure we tell our kids, y'all are number three, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we love you, but it's God, it's us, and it's you.
Yeah.
So that's how important priority is. And then the other verse that we like to reference.
Oh, is
I'm sorry, I just threw that at you.
you did. Exodus 34:14. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. And I actually just read a whole series about this, and I think it's fantastic because, you know, you forget, you know, God has so many names in the Bible, but jealous is one of them.
Yeah.
And
we're talking about legitimate protective jealousy.
right. But, you
Not
know,
like scratching a key down the side of your car.
right. But
That's a
in
different
a
jealousy.
marriage, you know, there is healthy jealousy.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's okay. You should be to it because this is it.
Right.
You know, we're it. And very protective, that's the priority. And, you know, and you should never, you know, we deal with couples like that too, where one is made to feel jealous all the time. That's not healthy. You
Right.
know,
No, we're talking in a legitimate jealousy in the context from Exodus where it is, you know, it's not because there's lack of security.
right.
You know, we talked about that before, where you know when you speak to women, they speak in a language of security, right? For Leah, it's the most important thing I can do is to make sure she feels secure, secure in our physical home, secure in our surroundings, secure in our marriage. You know, that's what means a lot to her. You know, for men, we need respect, and you know, so, well, he needs to earn respect. You know,
Right.
well, if that's your spouse and you don't respect him, there's an issue, and the issue starts with you don't have a personal relationship with God. But
Respect your husband. To the women out there, respect your husband whether he deserves it or not.
you're
Do
right.
it every day because that goes back to the Bible verse we were talking about. You can change your husband by changing your behavior.
Right, and you know, and if he's not someone respectable, pray him up. You know, be the azer, you know, be the helper, the rescuer, do miraculous things, but don't throw him under the bus.
Right.
But so back to the point of jealousy is that's the priority of marriage. You know, in Genesis, you know, the man will leave his mother and father and he'll cleave to his wife, and then you know the example of God saying, you know, there will be no other God.
Right.
Listen, I'm jealous, and we're not talking about. Again, we're not talking about somebody stalking you and running a key down the
Right.
side of your car. This is a legitimate. There is healthiness in jealousy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the reason that you wear wedding rings. It's the reason that we can go places together, and it's a claiming. You know, you're mine, and you're mine alone.
Right.
You know, and I'm yours, and that's priority. You know, and you know, I think we can. You know, like I know the unhealthy jealousy. You know, and that's not a place you ever want to be.
No, it's
And,
not. Well, for a woman, I mean, there's no security
Right.
in unhealthy jealousy.
Right.
And again, for women, security is one of the most important things that they can have. By the way, do you know why that that you wear the wedding ring on this finger?
Why?
Do you know?
No. Tell me. Teach me.
Do y'all know?
I hope you know the answer, and I'm just asking random
I'm
questions.
just hoping somebody. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only finger where the vein runs all the way to the heart.
Oh. I'm
And
glad
if
you knew
I'm
the
wrong,
answer.
and if there's like a first year medical student, and you know, and I'm wrong, just don't comment. But it sounded really good, and I'm loving
It's very
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to the law of priority.
Yes.
Okay, those are the keys, and it is marriage is designed to operate as a top priority. You can't just the way we treated it when we first got married was we were business partners 1st and probably friends second, and then married people like third.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and then our kids' parents after that.
Right.
Maybe the kids were pushed up because
Like-
we really always focus on the kids.
I was going to say, like, on the priority list, like, I felt I was the least priority.
Yeah.
Like, as a wife. I felt like I was at the bottom of the list. And so, and I don't know where you felt you were in, but, you know, I think it was just still trying to find that position with God, you know, to find a relationship with God at that
Right.
point. But it's like that, you know, that's where I was. And I'm telling you, like, if your spouse is not right a second after God, don't put them in that place. You know, I mean, this is supposed to be the person that loves you the most in the world besides God. And don't ever, you know, don't do that to your spouse. Don't put them in a position to where they feel like the person that's supposed to love them in the most in the world, you know, they might be 10th or 11th of importance as far as love goes. You know, it's not a good thing to do to your spouse.
No, and look, and if your marriage is not your top priority, then it's not going to last. You know, I mean, if you want it to be important, treat it like it's important. And treating like it's important is public affirmation, not necessarily public. What is it called? PDA.
Oh, PDA.
PDA?
Yeah.
Public, yeah, PDA.
No.
I'm not talking PDA. I'm talking about public affirmation. If you're with your girls at a lunch, man, don't knock your husband down. You know, bring him up or just be quiet. You know, guys. You know, oh man. You know, and you know, a lot of times with guys, they don't even talk about their spouses, but they're talking about, oh, look at her, look at that. Look, you know, by doing that, you're disrespecting your wife. You know, and those little seeds are being planted in your friends' minds, and it makes an effect. You know, so if you want it to be important, treat it like it's important. You know, we touched on legitimate jealousy, and you really do. Your wife, your husband, like I said, sometimes we'll joke about it. I'm like, all right, you know, you get a little too cocky, and she's like, I deserve to be cocky. You're my husband. I know you love me. I got no worries. You know, and you know what? And you should be cocky. You
It's
know,
a safety net.
it
I
is
should
a
be
safety
able to
net.
say
That's a good.
anything. I mean, I'm never like disrespectful or anything, but like there should be nothing that comes across my heart that I shouldn't be able to share with you. You know, and
Right.
and
'Cause
having
then it's-
that freedom to share it with you.
Otherwise, who are you gonna share
Right.
with? You go back to mama? No, right off the bat it says don't do that. And you know, mama, sister, your friends, whatever.
Right.
You know, we're just taking some of the notes we jotted down. It's just I mean, and it's true. After a couple, this says a couple years, probably after a couple months, men they get back settled into their career, and women focus on the home and the kids. And these are good. Work is good. Family's good, but that's you can't allow marriage to just become something you do.
Right.
It's got to be who you are. It's got to be what you strive. It has got to be the most important thing in your life. And I'll tell you, we went on we stay involved with EXO Marriage Conference, EXO Cruise, and it's presented by Marriage Today, and we were on a cruise, and it was couples from everywhere, and for a guy, it's different because guys don't think in terms of like celebrating marriage.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we cool, I'm married, we married, yeah, that's my ring. You don't think of it in terms of celebrating it. And when you get on this around these other people, it doesn't have to be a cruise.
Right.
There's a lot of workshops and there's a lot of marriage weekend to remember, and there's a lot of marriage conferences,
Right.
and like we love going to marriage conferences.
Right, we
And
do.
when you tell somebody, "Oh yeah, we went to a marriage conference," they're like, "What's going on? Y'all okay?"
Yeah.
I know it wasn't gonna last. It's like, no, man. Like people go to writing conferences and exercise conferences and I mean light bulb conferences.
Right.
Why can't you go to a marriage conference to celebrate marriage?
Right.
So for a guy, it's nice to be around other men, and that becomes your peer group.
Right.
You know, look, we pray for married couples, for married mentors. You know, and that's where we learn. You know, and then you know we're paying it forward because you know we want to be mentors to other couples.
Right.
So let it be your priority. Celebrate, like our pastor said, Josh Lawson, celebrate your marriage. Celebrate it. So
Yep. It's worth
we're gonna do
celebrating.
some celebrating later with ice cream.
And we're fasting.
Okay.
All right. Where are we?
We want to talk. Let's talk about how to establish and maintain the right priorities in your marriage. And I got a little slide for that. One day we're going to get a mouse,
Yeah.
a cursor. I mean, so these are the ways that you prove. Listen, it's easy to say, well, you know, I'm going to refocus. You know, maybe there was an affair, and then there's some restoration work to be done, or maybe you just grew apart. You know, look, we get so many emails from people that say, you know, we have grown apart. We're not where we want to be. You know, we don't want a divorce, but we just don't want to be together.
Right.
You know,
Right.
how do you prove if you're seeking restoration?
Right.
How do you prove that your marriage is a priority?
Well, that's the thing. It's like your words mean nothing if your actions don't follow. So, I mean, you have to show, you know, that your marriage is a priority.
Right.
You can't just tell your spouse over and over again that you like being married to them.
Right.
Eventually, they're going to stop believing you. You
No,
know.
you're right. And say, oh, you know, you're important, but I got to go.
Right.
I got something to do.
Right.
So
I
one of
gotta
the things.
go hang with the guys or whatever.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
So the first thing is the first way to prove that marriage is a priority is sacrifice, and that's simply listen. I will give this up for you.
Right.
You know, I will give this up for you, and you know, and it doesn't have to be a big grand gesture.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give up oxygen. I'm going to breathe your love.
Right.
You won't last maybe 7 seconds. You know,
You don't want to like give up your work, things like that.
I'm going to
you
give
know.
up my job
But look,
and employment
Maybe give up staying at the office till 8:00 and come home at 5.
when you
know,
don't have to.
When you don't
That's
have to.
right. No, listen, give up watching TV. You know, till you go to bed. I mean, it's whatever. It's got to be some type of sacrificial offer
Right.
to show your spouse. Listen, you're more important than reruns of late night television. You know, and listen, what's your spouse going to do? They'll either go do their own thing, or they'll sit there with you in silence. But misery, I mean,
Right.
silent misery is just is sad. You know, other than the sacrifice, you know, time.
Yeah.
It's huge. You know, we always talk about, you know, we say we're going to make the time. It's, well, if I could find the time to do this. No, man, you're not going to find. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Right.
Always only 24.
Well, like
Make the
you like one of your love languages is quality time. You know, and so like that's the best way to show you that you're loved. You know, is by spending time with you. And you know, so if you have a spouse that quality time is their love language, you know, basically when you don't spend time with them, what you're telling them is that you know you don't have that kind of love for them.
Right. That you're not the
that you're not
priority.
putting them as a priority.
Right. The next thing is energy, and it says, "I will meet your needs," and it's whatever those needs are. You know, I mean, it could be sexual needs, it could be physical fitness. You know, where maybe you know to return to some state of vigor, or a hobby or something like that. You know, if someone is so passionate about something, you know, it's you know it's wonderful to have a passion, a dream, a desire, and then it's even more wonderful to have a spouse
Right.
that look. You know, you may love painting, and I can't touch a brush, but I can show you that. Listen, I can be there. I can support you.
Right. And like, you know, we live in a society that is a selfish society.
Oh yeah,
And, you know, just as sinners, we're selfish people. But in a marriage, you cannot be selfish. You have to be servants to each other. And we hear that so much. You know, my spouse doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve, for me to do for him,
Oh, yeah.
and like you treat it like you feel like a slave instead of like you're serving him
Yeah.
in a godly way.
I'll tell you, I read we talk about this, about submission. And, of course, the current liberal mindset is, there's no way. There's no way. Well, listen, number one, you don't understand biblical principles.
Right.
Number two, you don't understand the value of submission. And it doesn't mean that you're weak or you're subservient or you're second place. It takes a strong person to say, I'm going to voluntarily submit my will to your leadership. Listen, not everybody can be a leader.
Right.
So, if we're both strong people pulling in different directions, you're going to rip things apart, or you're just not going to go anywhere. But so when you say that about, I'm there to meet your needs or to serve you, or or like Leah's love language is touch, And look, I'm not a big hugger, but I know that I need to meet her needs, and we're talking about like non-sexual physical intimacy. For guys, give me a high five, and I'm getting undressed, hopping to bed. Guys do that. I mean, that's the guy mentality. For your wife, hugs and handholds and physical touching that doesn't always lead to sex. So that shows I'm here to meet your needs, and then that goes into the others is the attitude, and it's just letting your spouse know I want to be with you. And words are wonderful.
Right.
But actions.
Right.
Listen, I want to be with you. I got to go.
Right.
I'll be with you in about 3 hours when I get home. Well, I mean, what does that say to somebody?
Or a wife. I'll be with you in 18 years when the last kid's out of the house.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
No, you're right.
That's a big one.
No, it's huge.
And then that's when you see a lot of people get divorced is after their last kid graduates from high school.
Yeah. No, right.
But the strongest marriages are two servants in love with each other.
And you talked about covenant versus contract, and a contract's 50-50, and that's what marriage is 50-50. I'll do as much as he does. That means you're both willing to come up to a point and stop.
Right.
It's got to be 100-100. There's got to be overlapping commitment and dedication, and these points of showing that your marriage is a priority.
Yeah, and there's going to be days when one of you serves more than the other.
Right.
It's not, you're not keeping score. There's going to be days when one of you's sick, or weeks when one of you's sick, or, if you have long illness or things like that.
Well, even spiritual. I mean, there's an ebb and flow in the spiritual realm, and you might find yourself under a dark spiritual cloud or under spiritual attack. And listen, I mean, the closer you draw together, we don't want to scare you out of being drawn close together, but the closer you draw to God, and the closer you're being drawn together. And that's when Satan, listen, let's not kid ourselves. Satan hates marriage. He hates it. Listen, Adam was created, and you never heard a word about the devil.
Right.
There was no serpent. There was nothing. When did he come on the scene?
Yeah.
When Eve came on the scene. Why? Because now there's a marriage, right? So it became the most important thing for Satan to do was attack, to wedge, to disrupt that marriage.
Right.
He did it then, and he's doing it now. Now, how do you close the gap? You draw close to God. You stay close to God. You don't give that space. There's no grace in that space when temptation's involved. So the devil hates marriage. He's going to do everything he can to destroy it. So you have got to keep those priorities. And the priorities, you've got to let your spouse know and show you are the most important thing on this earth. And those priorities are, and you can't make any bones about it. It's God, it's your spouse, it's your kids, then your church, extended family, friends, work, and then hobbies and interests. But God's got to be first. And look, put him in line. Everything else is going to flesh out.
That's right.
I mean, don't worry about.
If you're right at the top, everything beneath you is going to be right.
No, you're right. So, what we want to talk about, just really brief, is you'd really do. I mean, we say if you want it to be important, you got to treat it like it's important. But if you practice these 4 laws, this first law of priority, and then the ways to prove it, you're willing to be sacrificial.
Right.
You're willing to spend the time. you're willing to exert the energy, and you're willing to come with the proper attitude, your spouse is gonna fully understand, believe, and trust that it is the priority. I mean,
No.
it's really simple when you think about
Right.
it. You know.
And you know, and like we said, carve out the time. That's why date nights and date days are so important. You know,
Yeah.
take your lunch hour with your spouse, or you know, but carve out the time together away from the kids
Right. No, it's
and
huge.
spend it together
Mhm.
every week. And look, and the best way to do something with your spouse, you know, if your spouse likes to hunt, go hunting with them. It doesn't matter if you like to do it. It's not about you, you know. It's about being together.
Right.
And the best way to reach him is by meeting him where he likes to be.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa.
And that's
Scott
part
hates
of
to
the
go to
sacrifice.
movies, but he'll come to me just because I like to do them, and he'll suffer through it. You know,
Well, I don't suffer through it because we go to a movie
because
grill
I feed him.
where you can eat, where you can actually eat at the restaurant. Guys, I'm telling you, you know, if you want it to be important, treat it like it's important. And look, it doesn't mean you're less of a man because you're willing to go to a marriage conference, not because you're in trouble, not because you're trying to get brownie points, because you want to be there with your wife, because you want to celebrate the most important thing there is on the earth. So we thank y'all, and God bless you, and thanks.
Bye.